Hey guys, my name is Brenna Johnston, and I will be discussing Chapter 6 of Sidman's book Coercion and its Fallout, and this chapter is called Escape. And Sidman begins the chapter by discussing consequences and how they affect one's behavior. If we wish to change a certain behavior, and if we have the ability to change the consequence for that particular behavior, we do so to see if it makes the behavior more or less likely to occur, depending on whether the contingency is a reinforcer or a punisher. This is also known as contingency analysis. So we identify the behavior as well as the consequence for that behavior. Then we change the consequence to see if the behavior changes as well. Sidman provides an example of a chronic bedwetter whose parents believe he may be repeatedly wetting the bed as a result of the attention he receives from his parents each time he does so. And I actually found this to be an interesting example because the child could really have an issue with bladder control. After all, it's a pretty common problem. And the parents are having him basically lie in it and wait until the morning before they get him cleaned up and give him attention. They are changing up the contingencies to see if that is a factor in this continuation of bedwetting behavior. And I just think that it would be a little scarring if they were incorrect. Anyway, Sidman then goes on to address reinforcement and how both negative and positive reinforcement could be responsible for the behaviors one exhibits. They may be producing a certain behavior because of what is gained through positive reinforcement, or they may be doing it in order to avoid or escape from a certain situation. Contingency analysis is addressed again here because what was once a positive reinforcer may eventually become a negative reinforcer and vice versa. The example provided here was how a child may have viewed attention from his or her parents as a positive reinforcer while growing up, but once a teenager, he or she may feel a bit smothered by that same attention and then begin to resent their parents and try to avoid them as much as possible. After analyzing the contingencies, the parents could be less affectionate and attentive to the teenager to see if that alters the response or the behavior. The chapter's main topic of interest, escape, is tackled in this next section when Sidman discusses how negative reinforcement generates escape. This is because when we're presented with a negative reinforcer, we try to do whatever it takes or whatever we can to get away from it or make it stop, and often these negative reinforcers are actually used as punishers. Basically, negative reinforcers and punishers are the same events, however, their functions are different. So we can get shocked, which would serve as a punishment, and we can make the shock stop, which would be negative reinforcement. They become linked in what Sidman describes to be a vicious circle, because what we're escaping from through negative reinforcement was presented as a punisher for a behavior we had exhibited prior, and also what was presented as a punisher then presents the opportunity for a negative reinforcer. So, while punishment is usually done with the intention of stopping a certain behavior, it produces other behaviors as a result. And the most common behavior produced being escape. This is seen in many real-life situations, such as in businesses who practice, as he says, coercive supervisory practices, causing its employees to escape, and resulting in high personnel turnover. Or it can also be seen in marriages where a spouse is very coercive and controlling, and the husband or wife flees as a result, but behaviors such as infidelity may be produced and motivated by escape. Escape is further studied in the next section of the chapter, which is titled Learning Through Escape, in which a laboratory experiment is conducted to study how rats utilize escape when presented with negative reinforcers and provided an escape route. So in this experiment, the rats are shocked through their experimental chamber, but are provided with the opportunity or escape route to stop the shock by pressing a lever. This shows that new behaviors can not only be learned through positive reinforcement, but also through negative reinforcement as well. However, while behaviors can be learned through negative reinforcement may not be the most effective way to teach. This is because while the rat does learn a new behavior, it has learned the behavior out of fear of being shocked and does not dare stray from that lever as a result. And it then lives its life in fear, whereas if it's taught to press the lever out of positive reinforcement, such as getting food from pressing the lever, it can do so without being scared to leave the lever and be able to live a more relaxed life with more opportunities to learn even more. Negative reinforcement creates a narrow behavior repertoire where everything is done out of fear of what will happen, with little room or opportunity to explore or learn new things. It's also not advised to teach using negative reinforcement due to the many side effects that may arise. Some of such side effects may include living in constant fear, the inability to adjust and adapt to change or learn new behaviors, and also the transference of negative reinforcement from the event or action to a setting, object, person, etc., so that those places, people, or objects become negative reinforcers and even punishers. Thus, any behavior that might cause one to come in contact with one of these would be punished, and exit or escape behavior would then become strengthened. Okay. So, my question to you guys is, do you think there's an instance where negative reinforcement would be an appropriate way to teach, where side effects may not be presented? Why or why not? And also, can you provide an instance in your life where a positive reinforcer became a negative reinforcer or vice versa? And please explain. And try not to use the one where your parents giving you attention was a positive reinforcer growing up and then became a negative one when you became a teenager. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you all.